You're tuned in to 22 Crime, where the truth hides in the details. Together, we dive into the darkest corners of human nature, exploring the mysteries that have left investigators puzzled and families searching for justice. Because in the world of crime, the truth is never as simple as it seems. With just 22 minutes on the clock, let's dive into today's case and uncover the shocking truth. If you're craving more details after this episode, be sure to check out the full-length version for an even deeper dive into this chilling mystery. The clock is ticking. Let's uncover the truth behind today's mystery. Viewer discretion is advised. 22 is a true crime podcast that delves into real-life crime stories, which often involve graphic descriptions, sensitive content, and strong language that may not be suitable for all audiences. We strive to present these cases with the utmost respect for the victims and their families. Please note that the content discussed may be distressing or triggering for some listeners. Additionally, all resources and information presented in this podcast are obtained from publicly available internet sources. Listener discretion is strongly advised, and we recommend that only mature audiences proceed with caution. If you are sensitive to such content, please consider watching another video. Stay safe and take care of your mental health. Jade Janks seemed to have it all: success, beauty, and a thriving career. As an interior designer and art consultant, she had established herself in the creative world, juggling her work with an active social life. Known for her magnetic charm, sun-kissed complexion, and energetic lifestyle, often found at the gym or on the beach, Jade embodied the image of someone living the dream. However, beneath the surface of Jade's seemingly perfect life lay a more complicated story centered around her stepfather, Tom Merriman. Tom had been a constant figure in Jade's life since she was 12. More than just a stepfather, he became the father figure she had never had, and their bond appeared unbreakable. Even after his divorce from her mother, Jenny, Jade remained devoted, still calling him Dad. What seemed like a heartwarming relationship to outsiders would soon defy expectations. Jade's closeness to Tom was deepened by her strained relationship with her biological mother. Jenny's battles with alcohol, drugs, and violent outbursts created a rift, pushing Jade further from her mother and closer to Tom, who became her sanctuary. As Tom's health deteriorated due to addiction and medical issues, Jade became his caretaker, managing his appointments and care. Despite the strain, Jade never complained, driven by love, not obligation. But a discovery was looming, one that would shatter the world she thought she knew and unravel the bond she had cherished with the man she called Dad. Chapter 2. The Discovery. By late 2020, Tom Merriman's health had taken a drastic turn for the worse. Years of substance abuse and heavy drinking had caught up with him, and he was diagnosed with a slew of medical issues: liver dysfunction, heart failure, alcohol-induced hepatitis, and numerous other ailments that left him bedridden and in constant need of care. Jade Janks, who had always considered him more of a father than a stepfather, found herself in a role she never anticipated: his primary caretaker. Despite the strain it put on her, Jade took on the responsibility with a sense of duty and love. After all, Tom had been there for her since she was a young girl, and she couldn't imagine leaving him to face this battle alone. When Tom was hospitalized in December 2020, it was yet another reminder of how much his health had deteriorated. Doctors were unsure how long he would need to remain in care, as his conditions were serious and complicated. Jade made all of the necessary decisions regarding his treatment, having been given power of attorney for his medical decisions. In many ways, she had taken over the role of his protector, just as he had been hers for so many years. She wanted to make sure that when Tom returned home, everything would be in order, clean, and comforting. He deserved that after the torment his body had gone through. Jade went to Tom's home to prepare for his eventual discharge. As she moved through the house, she cleaned meticulously, wanting everything to be perfect for his return. She dusted furniture, straightened family photos, and scrubbed surfaces, taking particular care with his office, where Tom spent most of his time when he was at home. As she dusted around his computer desk, she accidentally bumped the mouse, waking the screen. And that's when everything changed. For a moment, Jade stood frozen, staring at the screen, unable to fully comprehend what she was seeing. There, displayed as the desktop background, was a nude photo of a woman. At first, she thought it was a random image, something that didn't belong. But as she looked closer, her heart dropped. She recognized the woman. The picture was of her. Stunned, Jade clicked through the computer in disbelief, her mind racing to make sense of what she had just seen. Surely, this was a mistake, some kind of misunderstanding. But the more she searched through Tom's files, the more horrifying the truth became. Folder after folder, meticulously organized, contained hundreds of photos of her in various stages of undress. Some were recent, taken over the past few years, but others were from much earlier. As she scanned through them, she found images dating back to when she was just a teenager, still a minor. The realization hit Jade like a tidal wave. Tom, the man she had trusted implicitly, the man she called Dad, had been secretly collecting and cataloging explicit images of her for years. Many of the photos seemed to have been taken without her knowledge, stolen from her personal devices or captured through hidden means. He had even taken screenshots from private videos she had filmed with a former boyfriend. It was a violation of the deepest kind. Jade's world collapsed in an instant. Everything she thought she knew about her relationship with Tom, the trust she had placed in him for so many years, crumbled before her. The man who had cared for her, protected her, and loved her like a daughter had been secretly betraying her in the most unimaginable way. The bond they had shared now felt twisted and sinister, a deception that had been festering for decades without her ever realizing it. Overwhelmed by shock, disgust, and confusion, Jade stood in Tom's office, unable to move, unable to think. The betrayal was too much to bear, and in that moment, her mind began to spiral. How could this have happened? How could the person she trusted the most have done something so horrific? She couldn't reconcile the loving father figure with the monster she now knew him to be. This discovery was the beginning of Jade's emotional and psychological unraveling, setting her on a path that would lead to devastating consequences. The moment Jade Janks discovered the explicit photos on her stepfather Tom's computer, her world collapsed. The man she had trusted as a father had betrayed her in an unimaginable way. These images, taken without her knowledge, captured intimate moments from her youth, leaving her feeling violated and shattered. The weight of the betrayal wrapped around her, suffocating her emotionally and mentally. That night, Jade couldn't sleep, haunted by the images. Her mind spiraled as she questioned every memory and gesture, wondering if his fatherly love had always been part of a twisted deception. She swung between disgust, confusion, and rage, feeling her trust and identity had been stolen. Her sense of safety was destroyed, leaving her to wonder how she could ever trust anyone again. In desperation, Jade called Mike, a close friend, hoping for support. But his response, "Just delete the photos," was dismissive, deepening her isolation. Feeling abandoned, she reached out to Sarah, who suggested evicting Tom or reporting him to the police. Even with Sarah's empathy, Jade was paralyzed by fear. What if no one believed her? Worse, what if Tom retaliated? As Jade's mental state deteriorated, she reached out to Alan Roach, a man known for handling difficult situations outside the law. Her initial messages were cautious, but her desperation quickly showed. While she didn't mention the photos right away, Alan sensed the seriousness of her situation and offered his help. Jade, however, grew more erratic, confessing her fear of Tom and what she might be capable of. In a dark moment, Jade joked about having a plastic tarp by her bed for cleaning up after an attack. Her grim humor barely concealed her unraveling state. She admitted her mind was spinning, and with Tom's hospital release approaching, her anxiety intensified. She feared Tom would retaliate, and considered having Alan present when Tom returned to force him to delete the images. As the day of Tom's release neared, Jade's messages became more frantic, referring repeatedly to the plan, though its exact nature was unclear. While she claimed her only goal was to make Tom delete the photos, a darker undercurrent flowed through her words. Jade was losing her grip on reality, standing at the edge of something dangerous, consumed by betrayal, fear, and mounting rage. Chapter 4: The Fatal Confrontation. Jade Janks had reached her breaking point. Discovering hundreds of explicit photos of herself on her stepfather Tom's computer shattered her world. The man she once trusted had been betraying her for years, and the bond they shared now felt like a sick manipulation. For weeks, Jade agonized over how to confront him, especially as his return from the hospital loomed closer. Tom, weakened by years of substance abuse, was about to be discharged. The idea of him living nearby again filled Jade with dread, and her paranoia grew with each passing day. The tipping point came as Tom's discharge approached. Jade felt trapped, unable to face him but equally unable to let the situation go. Desperate, she reached out to Alan Roach, a man known for handling messy problems. Their messages became increasingly frantic, with Jade hinting at a plan that went beyond a mere confrontation. By December 31, 2020, Jade's thoughts were consumed with the idea of making sure Tom could never violate her trust again. On the morning of that fateful day, Jade purchased items that would later be referred to as part of a kill kit: paper towels, cable ties, gloves, and other supplies. She claimed they were for her interior design work, but the timing cast doubt on that justification. Later, Jade went to the hospital to pick up Tom. Disoriented from his withdrawal and medications, he was unaware of what was to come. As they drove home, Jade's anxiety spiked. She texted Alan, saying she had dosed the hell out of him, a phrase prosecutors would later argue was part of her plan to incapacitate him. Jade insisted she was only administering his prescribed medication. The tension mounted during the drive. Jade made stops at a hardware store and a liquor store, picking up a large bottle of Jack Daniels, Tom's favorite, and vodka. Prosecutors would later use these stops as evidence of premeditation, suggesting she intended to sedate him further. When they finally reached the driveway, Tom collapsed. Panic set in. Jade realized she couldn't lift him. Frantic, she texted Alan again, saying, "I can't carry him. I'm not strong enough." But Alan wasn't coming. Jade was alone with a sedated, vulnerable man lying helplessly in her driveway. Over the next few hours, Jade's panic grew. Prosecutors would later claim that in her desperation, she made the decision to strangle Tom. Though Jade maintained she never intended to kill him, she only wanted him to delete the photos and end her torment. As the sun set on December 31, 2020, the truth about what transpired remained murky, a mystery that would unravel in the days to come. Chapter 5. The Aftermath. What had started as a plan to confront Tom spiraled into a fatal encounter. Jade's mental state had been unraveling since she found the explicit photos on his computer. The text messages she sent to Alan Roach became more desperate, filled with undertones that prosecutors would later argue pointed to premeditated violence. "I can't carry him," she texted Alan. "I'm not strong enough." The words hinted at both a physical and emotional struggle, as Jade grappled with the enormity of her situation. Tom, now unconscious from a mix of medication and alcohol, lay motionless in the car. Jade had hoped for an apology or a moment of remorse, but instead, she was left with a man too incapacitated to respond. The plan, if it had ever been fully formed, was unraveling. Prosecutors would later argue that in her panic, Jade made the decision to strangle Tom. They contended that her fury and sense of betrayal boiled over, leading her to suffocate him while he was defenseless. Jade, on the other hand, claimed that Tom overdosed on his own medications, exacerbated by the alcohol. Forensic experts presented a complex picture. While Tom's body showed no clear signs of asphyxiation, the level of intoxication in his system meant that even minimal pressure could have suffocated him. Regardless of the intent, by the time the confrontation ended, Tom was dead. But Jade's panic didn't subside with his death, it only deepened. Instead of calling the authorities, Jade found herself paralyzed by fear. She texted Alan again, frantically saying, "He's waking up." Though Tom was likely already dead or near death, no one was coming to help her, and Jade was left alone with a dead body in her car as the new year dawned. By January 2, 2021, Jade finally tried to dispose of Tom's body. Her first attempt to move him was unsuccessful. He was too heavy. In a gruesome and desperate act, she dragged his body across the driveway and hid it under a pile of trash, covering him with boxes, blankets, and garbage. It was a crude attempt to buy herself time, but it wouldn't last. In the hours that followed, Jade continued texting friends and family, keeping up appearances even as the situation spiraled further out of control. But the walls were closing in. Her on-again, off-again boyfriend Adam, to whom Jade had confessed in a moment of panic, finally called the police. The authorities were closing in on Jade, and it was only a matter of time before Tom's body was discovered. When they found Tom's corpse under the pile of trash, the truth was undeniable. Jade's carefully constructed facade had crumbled. The consequences of her actions were now unavoidable, and the story she had been trying to conceal would soon be exposed for the world to see. The dawn of January 2, 2021, brought an eerie stillness to Solana Beach. Jade Janks, still reeling from the events of the past few days, had spent a sleepless night, her mind a maelstrom of fear and desperation. She knew what lay hidden beneath the pile of trash at the end of her driveway. Her stepfather, Tom, was dead, his body discarded like refuse, but Jade hadn't figured out what to do next. The enormity of what had transpired had left her paralyzed, waiting for something, anything, to make sense of the chaos that had consumed her. But that morning, it wasn't just Jade who felt the weight of unease. The police had received an anonymous tip, a call that would shift the narrative and forever change the course of Jade's life. It was Adam, Jade's former boyfriend, who made the call to the police. Since their unsettling conversation the previous night, Adam had been struggling to come to terms with what Jade had confessed. She had told him, in no uncertain terms, that she had killed her stepfather. "I drugged him, suffocated him, and now I need to move the body," she had said, as if talking about a routine task. For Adam, it was all too much. He had to act. At 10 a.m., Adam dialed the San Diego Police Department and reported the crime. He gave them Jade's address and explained that Tom's body was hidden under a pile of garbage outside her house. His voice trembled as he recounted the conversation, emphasizing the urgency of the situation. The police, now equipped with this information, immediately sent a team to Jade's home. Detective Martinez led the team as they arrived at Jade's Solana Beach residence. From the outside, the house appeared calm, ordinary even, betraying nothing of the horror that lay hidden nearby. Officers knocked on the door, but there was no answer. With growing suspicion, they began scanning the area. It didn't take long for Detective Martinez to notice the pile of trash at the end of the driveway. There were broken boxes, discarded blankets, and an old wheelbarrow. At first glance, it seemed like nothing more than post-holiday clutter, but something about the way the pile was arranged felt deliberate, unnatural, even. Martinez signaled to the other officers to begin searching through it. As they moved the boxes and blankets aside, the officers uncovered something chilling. Lying beneath the trash, still clad in his hospital gown and bracelet, was Tom. His body was cold, his skin pallid and discolored. For a moment, the officers paused, the grim reality sinking in. The missing man was no longer missing. Tom was dead. As the discovery was being made, Jade was driving through her neighborhood. Her mind raced, filled with plans, fear, and the anxiety of what she knew she had to face. But her time was up. Before she could even return home, the police had pulled her over. Jade's face betrayed little emotion as the officer asked her to step out of the vehicle. Her eyes flickered between the officer and the road ahead, as if contemplating escape, but it was too late. She was placed in handcuffs, and for the first time since the harrowing series of events had begun, Jade was forced to face the reality of what had happened. The facade of control she had tried to maintain was gone. Her fate was now in the hands of the law. The investigation into Tom's death began almost immediately after her arrest. The police worked quickly, piecing together the details of the days leading up to his murder. They searched her home, her car, and, most importantly, her phone, which held a treasure trove of incriminating messages exchanged between Jade and her acquaintances. The text to Alan Roach, especially the one where she stated, "I just dosed the hell out of him," became a pivotal part of the prosecution's case. Combined with the discovery of Tom's body and the context provided by her texts, Jade's claims of innocence began to crumble. Jade was charged with first-degree murder, and the case quickly gained media attention. Tom had been a well-known figure in the community, thanks to his work with butterfly farms, and the circumstances of his death only added to the intrigue. The public was divided. Some saw Jade as a cold-blooded killer, while others believed there was more to the story, pointing to the betrayal she had suffered upon discovering the photos on Tom's computer. As Jade was processed and taken into custody, her mind likely raced through the events that had led her to this point. She had once been a respected figure in her community, known for her creativity, charm, and successful career. Now, she was a murder suspect, her future hanging in the balance. Her arrest marked the beginning of a legal battle that would captivate the public for months to come. But for Jade, it was the end of the fragile facade she had been desperately trying to hold together. The truth was out, and there was no turning back. The trial of Jade Janks was a national sensation, filled with betrayal, trauma, and shocking violence. Once a respected businesswoman, Jade now faced a first-degree murder charge for the death of her stepfather, Tom Merriman. The prosecution argued that Jade's discovery of nude photos of herself on Tom's computer led to a premeditated murder. They highlighted a damning text where Jade said, "I just dosed the hell out of him," and the purchase of suspicious items like gloves and cable ties from a hardware store. Forensic evidence showed Tom had been drugged and suffocated, with the prosecution contending Jade tried to stage his death as an accident to cover her tracks. In contrast, Jade's defense claimed she was a victim of emotional breakdown after years of manipulation by Tom. The discovery of the photos, some dating back to when she was a minor, triggered her actions. They argued she acted out of panic and emotional distress, not premeditation, and the hardware store purchases were linked to her interior design work, not murder. The defense painted Jade as a woman who cared for Tom for years and made a tragic mistake in a moment of extreme emotional turmoil, not a cold-blooded killer. Despite this, the jury found Jade guilty of first-degree murder in March 2023, persuaded by the prosecution's evidence of premeditation. Jade was sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 25 years. The courtroom was split. Some believed justice was served, while others saw her as a victim of Tom's violation. Jade expressed deep remorse during her final statement, but her fate was sealed. Despite the conviction, her defense team vowed to appeal, arguing her actions were a result of psychological trauma, not intent to kill. Thank you so much for listening all the way through. If you've made it to this point, drop a comment with the word "done," and we'll give you a personal shout-out to show our appreciation. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive in this murder and media frenzy. It was as fascinating for us to create as we hope it was for you to hear. If you found this episode thought-provoking, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, so you never miss an update. We also invite you to join our YouTube channel, where you can get early access to our content, have your questions answered directly, and enjoy exclusive members-only content. We'd love to know what you think about this case. Was justice truly served? Share your opinions in the comments below. We're always eager to hear your thoughts. For those wanting to explore more on true crime, we've included Amazon affiliate links to some of the books we referenced in our research. Purchasing through the link won't cost you anything extra, but it will support the channel and help us continue bringing you more content. If you're craving even more, consider joining our Patreon community. As a member, you'll get access to the full script of this episode, exclusive book summaries, and even the complete set of images featured in this case, available for purchase in our Patreon store. This has been 22 Crime. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe.